and welcome to another episode of Miserymas. I'm uploading a video every day to try and stave away the misery. For you, for me, for all. Today we are talking about the things I, emphasis on I, personally regret buying in my 20s. If you haven't been here before, hi, my name's Lena. I have a series on my channel called the 20s Toolkit, and this is going to be a casual chat around that theme, things that I wish I had known in my 20s. And when it comes to my wallet, oh wow. There is so much I didn't know. Your 20s are a weird time because you kind of, for the first time, really have access to bigger chunks of money, but you also have more responsibility, more to manage. And there's also an incredible amount of symbolic faff that you are pressured to purchase in your 20s to feel like an adult. Because if I could just say one thing to my past self, I'd say, you can't buy the feeling of being an adult. You cannot purchase it in a shop. And there were so many things that I bought because I thought that's what adults did. But failing to recognise the situation I was in and like the kind of like physical reality I was in and whether or not I could afford or needed those things. So these things are just my personal things. I'd love to hear yours in the comments. Mine are obviously subject to my circumstances and my life, but I'd love a little pool of information in the comments so we can all kind of build this very slow picture of spending in your 20s. But here are some of my regrets. Number one, furniture. Now, you're going to be in rented property, if you're like me, for literally all of your 20s. Accept it now, make peace, plan for the future, but fight systemic issues. However, you're going to be in rented property, probably, unless you are incredibly lucky and privileged. So I would always be living in these places, usually for a year or two at a time, that didn't really feel like mine. And I was also following a lot of people on Instagram who were making their houses like an extension of their personal brand. Like, people want their houses to look like they feel on the inside, which is cool and such a cool art project. And if you can do it, amazing. Love watching other people do it. But in my early 20s, that is just not where I was financially or physically. So I'd buy these pieces of furniture that to me, like I was like, if I buy this, then my rented property, like owned by an evil overlord landlord who's making me pay his mortgage for some weird lawful reason. When I buy this piece of furniture, it will feel like it's mine. I'll get this feeling that it's mine. And I'm not saying don't decorate your rented properties, like go ham, go as far as you can, maybe a little bit further. But the furniture is really expensive to move. So I'd buy or sometimes pick up off the road when drunk for free incredible amounts of really old worn furniture and fill my house with it. They usually be like £30 or something. Really would recommend, no, don't recommend places to get secondhand furniture to them, Lena. You're trying to tell them not to. But the British Heart Foundation is amazing. But because like every time I rented a property, I was like, I'm gonna be friends with these people, or I'm gonna be dating this person for a really long time, and I'm gonna love this flat, and there's not gonna be any weird problems with it. There's not gonna be no leaks or creepy estate agents that drop by while I'm in my underwear. None of that's gonna happen. I'm gonna be here forever. And I never was. And every time I moved, it was incredibly awkward. I'd only have like access to really, really small cars, or sometimes, lol, I'd have to carry the pieces of furniture between the flats I was moving in. Once we even robbed borrowed a shopping trolley from a supermarket to like move our stuff between flats. And it was genuinely more hassle than it was worth. And I wish that if I did have that urge, I would have poured it into secondhand blankets, secondhand cushions, things that are really easy to compact and carry, so that in the transient nature of your 20s, you can carry those things with you, make it feel like home, maybe even pick a smell that makes it feel like home, find a favourite incense flavour. The furniture I regret, and so much of it isn't with me anymore. One, because like I couldn't carry it, but like physically couldn't carry it and ended up having to just give it away. Or it just broke because it was already on its last legs. And God, it's making me exhausted to even think about. Let's move on. Number two, accessories for hobbies that you don't yet have. I would often like fantasize about having enough time to have loads of hobbies, which maybe was a red flag to me about how I was maybe working too much and going out too much, and maybe like this fantasy for hobbies was a fantasy for free time on my own that I didn't give myself. So instead I'd browse all these kind of like hobbies and the accessories around hobbies, and I'd just like wait and buy one of those things before I'd even started the hobby, whether that's like a ukulele or a pair of roller skates, or for me what I just avoided was a sewing machine. I really, really wanted to start sewing during the pandemic. You saw the video where I did loads of sewing during the pandemic, but you'll notice I did it on like a £25 toy sewing machine, because by my 30s I'd learnt my lesson that if I wanted to start something, I should either borrow or buy small and experiment, push myself to the limits of that accessory to the point where I'm doing it so much that I really do need a better one, and then saving up and purchasing the hobby accessory, whatever that might be. Maybe that's like a fancy hockey stick or a fancy pair of running shoes. Because we live in this like hellscape of capitalism, the generation of faffy accessories around hobbies that usually should be quite cheap, wholesome, and all of the accessories are available secondhand is just like in your face. The sticky ads just come at you. And if I had just avoided that a little bit more and been like, I know that I want to do this hobby, but will I? And then given myself like a little purgatory time of 3 or 4 or 5 months to see whether I was actually regularly doing that hobby, and if I was. And the only thing that's really stuck for me at the moment is sewing. I don't get to do it very often, but when I do, I bloody love it. And I wore that toy sewing machine into the ground. And as you might have seen in the first video of this series, I did finally get an adult sewing machine. And it does backstitch. Saucy. Anyway, the next one. Things that you yourself cannot tell the quality of. Examples here include expensive haircuts and wine. I'm not saying that people who make stuff in those fields aren't incredibly talented, and there aren't incredible nuances between a certain kind of wine and another, but I personally cannot taste notes. I can only hear them. And I can't really genuinely on a day-to-day basis tell the difference with my hair type between a £50 haircut, I don't know what I'm saying, £50, they were £50, or a £25 haircut. Like, I actually physically cannot tell the difference. And again, that might be me being really lucky with my hair type and the fact that I don't really want a very fancy style, but I felt incredibly pressured, especially in office environments, when people would like recommend me hairdressers, and then I'd look them up and I'd realise it was like £70-80 a haircut. I once or twice, maybe 3 times in my 20s, felt pressured to do that because I just felt that like they're like, it's worth it to invest in a good haircut. Forgetting that haircuts and bottles of wine are transient. Like, they do go. They're not things you can invest in and keep forever. Unfortunately, that's not the way the human scalp or the human bowels work. And I genuinely am passionate about, like, you should spend more money on something if you can tell the difference in the quality. But if you don't have the expertise to be able to tell the difference, then it's a lost value, and it's not doing yourself a favour when there's things that I really should have spent money on, like maybe getting my hair professionally dyed rather than doing box dyes all of my 20s, so now I have a little bold section on the front of my head, or buying myself prescription sunglasses so I didn't have constant headaches between April and September. That's something I only just bought at 31, and I was like, wow, I really held back on myself for something I medically needed, but so that I could buy things that I felt were like important adult things to buy. The next one, nights out with the wrong people. You know who the wrong people are. You know how much money you spend going out with people that you aren't clicking with or you're not learning from. I'm not saying you only spend like time and money with people who you're going to know forever, or no, because I think there's loads of people that can join your life, add stuff to your life, you can add stuff to their life, and then you send each other off into the sunset, and that's fine. But I think if this one does apply to you, you know what I'm talking about, and I certainly did this a lot in my 20s, spending so much money and time out with the people who weren't my people. And that was okay, and I just had to come to terms with that. But there is like a big money drain in that as well, so that's why I put it on the list. The next one is makeup. Makeup expires. Why can't I get that into my head? For me, buying more than 1 or 2 eyeshadow palettes isn't an investment, not because I don't love it, but because I will not physically use it within the 2-year time frame. When somebody pointed the 2-year time frame out to me, like on the back of most makeup there is an expiry date, and I realised that what I had in my makeup bag was in fact a food store cupboard. It was a tiny pantry. Then I was like, oh. So while I love makeup and I do spend money on it sometimes, I've realised that it is finite, and like building a collection of something, again, it is going to expire. It's going to go off, and then it's going to make your life a crusty life, and we don't love that. So pick the items that you really love, but building a collection, unless like makeup is your one true love, like your expertise, your one hobby, like it makes you feel like an adult, but it actually makes you smell like a swamp. This list is long. God, my list is long, but I'm just going to do 2 more for you. Kitchen equipment. This kind of lies under the hobbies thing. Sometimes I felt like in these instruction booklets, in these cookbooks that I'd read, like they just really casually drop in all the different equipment that you needed for it without like specifying what it was or how expensive it was. And I was like, oh my God, I really want to make this recipe. Like, I've got to have that thing. And instead of like borrowing it, which I did sometimes, but I often didn't even know anyone who had this kind of kitchen equipment, I'd like just avoid making the recipe altogether. Or I'd save up and buy this thing and then I'd never use it again. And I also have found that most kitchen equipment in the price range that you can like afford in your 20s breaks down pretty easily. There was a lot of waste in my 20s of buying like food mixers and like juicers and stuff that they just don't last very long unless you're able to spend loads of money on them. So frankly, I just wish that I hadn't. But that's a personal decision. Maybe you are really into cooking and you're really talented at it and it is like a good investment for you. But for me, I really regret it, and it's definitely a purchase that I felt pressured to do because like these like classy ladies who make these big cookbooks have all this equipment. But I at the moment don't have any kitchen equipment, and if it says whisk something, I literally just put on a podcast, get a wooden spoon and do that. It doesn't taste that different. To me, again, it links to the taste thing. To me, I genuinely don't taste the difference. Maybe one day I will, but today is not that day. And then finally, this is a bit of an embarrassing one, so if I blush, sorry, very British. Vibrators, man, Hannah, one of my best friends in the world, absolutely loves vibrators. And if you would like to go and watch her recommend incredible amounts of vibrators and which ones are best for you, there is a video up there and I highly recommend it. As a non-vibrator user, I still really enjoyed it. However, hands are free, they're waterproof, they're sustainable, they're washable, and for some people, it's so awkward. Don't sweat, leave it. Lena, center yourself, you can do this. For some people, me in particular, I have suffered on and off with vaginismus, and also I just personally feel like I am more somebody who responds to human warmth and real human body parts. People who bought me vibrators, like as a joke, like I used to live in a girl's house at uni and people buy each other vibrators for their birthdays. They never worked on me. I found them a bit weird. But I thought I just wasn't buying the best one, like the most expensive one. And I also felt a bit like awkward because I felt really out of it because they just really genuinely didn't do it for me. And I was like, what's going on? And then recently, a few years ago, I was gifted a vibrator that was worth £130. And I was like, okay, influencer life, let's just try it once. Don't knock it till you've tried it. And I genuinely can't get on with this thing. And I think that sometimes this price range thing of like, oh, you've just got to spend more on it and then it will feel really amazing. Like, you know yourself, for loads of people vibrators work, but when you're alone with yourself, you can tell whether you can replicate what you like and accentuate it with a vibrator or not, to put not a very fine point on it. And I think I did buy 1 or 2, and I know that a lot of my friends bought quite a lot in our 20s, and a lot of us regretted it because it just doesn't do it for us, and that's okay. And again, just to remind you, free, washable, sustainable, here for you anytime. On that note, let's end this video because I am blushing. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to watch more 20s videos, they are here. And if I can interest you in watching more of the Miserymas month of videos, they are here. Thank you so much for watching. Happy spending and scrimping and saving. Make sure you have a fuck off fund. I'll link that below before you even start spending on any of this. And I will see you in my next one. Frog Snog out.